Welcome back to the Daily Morning Sports Feed on Fiddler, with me as editor Olivia. Today, let's take a look at some notable politics news in the past 24 hours. Thank you for always supporting and accompanying us. Come to the following hot news. Why you can't just ignore Donald Trump's latest threat. Donald Trump's secret strategy is that there is no secret strategy. This is the bar Joe Biden will have to clear in 2024. The first news. Why you can't just ignore Donald Trump's latest threat. Because Donald Trump says so much that is, well, outlandish, there's a tendency to roll your eyes or laugh off any one of his proclamations. Or to ignore them entirely because Trump is just being Trump. This is a coping mechanism to deal with a prominent political figure who has no internal limit on what he says, when and how. And, for the most part, it's a smart strategy. Most of what Trump says is ephemera, easily dismissed. But, then there are moments like Saturday night. In a Truth Social post attacking Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell for helping Democrats to pass a bill to keep the government funded and open, Trump wrote this. Is McConnell approving all of these trillions of dollars worth of Democrat-sponsored bills, without even the slightest bit of negotiation, because he hates Donald J. Trump, or is he doing it because he believes in the fake and highly destructive Green New Deal, and will take the country down with him? In any event, either reason is acceptable. He has a death wish. Must immediately seek help and advice from his China-loving wife, Coco Chow. Let's note but not dwell on the casual racism inherent in referring to Elaine Chao, McConnell's wife, as Coco Chow. Chow was Trump's Secretary of Transportation for 4 years. She resigned following the January 6, 2021, riot at the U.S. Capitol. And that Trump used that phrase less than 24 hours before the New York Times ran a front-page piece headlined, "Lawmakers Confront a Rise in Threats and Intimidation, and Fear Worse," that included these lines. Members of Congress in both parties are experiencing a surge in threats and confrontations as a rise in violent political speech has increasingly crossed over into the realm of in-person intimidation and physical altercation. In the months since the January 6, 2021, attack on the Capitol, which brought lawmakers and the vice president within feet of rioters threatening their lives, Republicans and Democrats have faced stalking, armed visits to their homes, vandalism and assaults. So, this is not some theoretical conversation about whether saying that McConnell has a death wish might actually be dangerous in the real world to McConnell. We have seen, repeatedly, over recent months that it is a paper-thin barrier between violent rhetoric and violent action. January 6 is a perfect example, with many of the rioters that day insisting that they were operating under, if not the direct orders, then the clear wishes of Trump himself. As the Wall Street Journal editorial board wrote, "It's all too easy to imagine some fanatic taking Mr. Trump seriously and literally, and attempting to kill Mr. McConnell." Many supporters took Mr. Trump's rhetoric about former Vice President Mike Pence all too seriously on January 6. Simply put, to use the phrase death wish, amid everything we know about the rising tide of political violence in this country is deeply irresponsible. It may not be anything new for Trump, but we shouldn't simply dismiss this latest outrage. To do so is to normalize this sort of behavior, and the potential for violence that it provokes. The following news. Donald Trump's secret strategy is that there is no secret strategy. When Donald Trump won the White House, in stunning fashion, in 2016, there was a rush to declare him a master strategist. All of his off-color remarks, all of his unorthodox campaign tactics, they were all part of a grander vision that only he, as a master manipulator of people and the press, could see. He was playing three-dimensional chess while the rest of us poor schmoes were playing simple old checkers. What became clear as his presidency wore on, however, was that there was no grand blueprint from which Trump was executing a long-term plan. He was, for lack of a better phrase, just doing stuff. That's the reality that the New York Times' Maggie Haberman exposed in an interview over the weekend about her new book on Trump. He has a handful of moves that he has used forever, she told CBS News' John Dickerson. And people tend to impute a ton of strategy to what he's doing. But really, there are these moves. And it's the quick lie, it's the backbiting with one aide versus another, it is the assigning blame to someone else. All of this, again, is about creating a sense of drama, a sense of chaos, and often, John, about keeping the responsibility off him. That's exactly right. And it's always been true. Witness how Trump described his day back in his 1987 book, The Art of the Deal. Most people are surprised by the way I work. I play it very loose. I don't carry a briefcase. I try not to schedule too many meetings. I leave my door open. You can't be imaginative or entrepreneurial if you've got too much structure. I prefer to come to work each day and just see what develops. I have at least a dozen meetings. The majority occur on the spur of the moment, and few of them last longer than 15 minutes. Absolutely nothing has changed since then. Trump is, by nature, someone who makes it up as he goes along. One great example? His border wall. If you go back and read his announcement speech in the summer of 2015, he doesn't even mention the wall until the latter half of the address. I would build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me, and I'll build them very inexpensively. I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, he said. And I will have Mexico pay for that wall. It was 2 sentences in a very long speech. And Trump didn't dwell on it. In fact, he rapidly moved off the wall, telling the crowd next that nobody would be tougher on ISIS than Donald Trump. Nobody. The wall then was just one in a laundry list of items that Trump threw out in his initial speeches. But, what he quickly realized was that it was a big applause line. And so he started talking about it more. And more. The best way to think about Trump, or the way that's proven most useful to me, is as a stand-up comedian. Early in his political career, he was trying out all sorts of different lines to see which one succeeded with the audience. By now, he's got his patter down. He only uses the material, stolen election, lamestream media, etc., that he knows are sure things with the audience. But, those are all tactics. There is no grand strategy beyond keeping people loyal to him at all costs. And, as Haberman notes, ensuring that he never takes the blame for anything bad in his world. So, let's dispel, once and for all, the idea that Trump is somehow always working 5 moves ahead of the rest of the political world. He's not. He is, instead, reacting to whatever happens to come his way, forever churning to the news of the day. The last news. This is the bar Joe Biden will have to clear in 2024. Joe Biden still hasn't made up his mind about whether or not to run for president in 2024. Look, my intention, as I said to begin with, is that I would run again, the president said last month in an interview with CBS 60 Minutes. But it's just an intention. But is it a firm decision that I run again? That remains to be seen. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that Biden does decide to run for another term in 2 years' time. The challenge before him will be simple but profound. Prove to the American people that he can campaign all over the country for the entirety of the campaign. That's according to the latest column from the Washington Post's Meghan McConnell, who writes, "You need only watch video from 10 years ago to see that the president now appears slower than he used to be. That doesn't mean he's unfit to be president. He will not be asked to resolve a foreign policy crisis by solving crossword puzzles at high speed. But whether it's a policy problem, it is a political problem." McCardle's argument, if I extrapolate it somewhat, goes like this. 1. In the early primary and caucus states where a premium was put on hand-to-hand campaigning, Biden was crushed. 2. He was saved by the endorsement of South Carolina Representative Jim Clyburn and the strong support of black voters in the Palmetto State. 3. After that win in South Carolina, the primary campaign effectively ended because the country went into lockdown over COVID-19. 4. The general election campaign, similarly, wasn't much of a campaign. Biden held very few in-person events, and the ones he did hold were with small numbers of people. 5. By the time the 2024 campaign rolls around, the pandemic will be in the rearview mirror. Biden says it already is. And politics will return to normal again. Which means Biden will have to do something he hasn't done in years, actively campaign. Again, McCardle, whether Republicans nominate Trump or someone else, his opponent is going to be out there on the stump, whipping up voter enthusiasm and proving they have the stamina for the job. If Biden doesn't follow suit, he will be conceding them an edge, especially since they will not be shy about using that fact to raise questions about his fitness. We know from oodles of polling that there are real and persistent questions among the electorate, including a decent-sized chunk of Democrats, about whether Biden should run again, with his age being a prime driver of those doubts. Whether you agree with McCardle or not, she raises a provocative and important point. Given Biden's age and snaffus like the one last week involving the late Representative Jackie Walorski, people are going to be keeping a close eye on how he carries himself as a candidate in 2024. The point: Biden, assuming he runs in 2024, will be 81 years old on the campaign trail, the oldest person to ever seek a second term as president. He was also the oldest person ever elected to a first term. His ability to handle the rigors of a campaign will be a major hurdle he needs to clear in the eyes of many voters. And those are also the most outstanding news that closes daily feeds. Thank you to everyone for listening and following Fiddler channel. If you find the video interesting and useful, please click like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the latest political news.